Welcome to the Fort Indiantown Gap Outdoor Recreation Safety Briefing. The information that follows will inform you on important rules and regulations so that you can safely participate in outdoor recreation activities at our installation. Fort Indiantown Gap National Guard Training Center is one of the busiest installations in the United States. Its purpose and our goal is to prepare our troops for military mission. Everything else follows after this. As you are participating in outdoor recreation at Fort Indiantown Gap, please respect the mission, our troops, and the land on which they train. Please review the remainder of the presentation carefully, as you will be tested on the information at the end. Outdoor recreation at Fort Indiantown Gap is a privilege, and all activities are at the discretion of the garrison commander. The garrison commander may suspend any and all activities based on training requirements, available personnel, staffing resources, and/or installation security. All participants must comply with all Pennsylvania Game Code laws and regulations, along with Fort Indiantown Gap Regulation 215-2. Regulation guidelines are required by the Department of Defense and the Department of the Army for any outdoor recreation program. Regulation 215-2 outlines all rules and regulations at Fort Indiantown Gap regarding participation in outdoor recreation and hunting activities. Knowing and understanding the information in this handbook is mandatory. Regulation handbooks can be obtained at the Outdoor Recreation Check-In Facility or at the Wildlife Office, Building 11-19. All collected permit fees go toward sustaining and improving the outdoor recreation program and participant experience. These fees also support habitat creation and maintenance for all species. Fort Indiantown Gap consists of over 17,000 acres. The installation is split into two regions, Cantonment, which lies south of Blue Mountain, and the Corridor, which lies north of it. Cantonment holds over 4,000 acres for outdoor recreation. It consists of all of the Alpha areas and Training Area Charlie 1. Cantonment is also the Deer Management Assistant Program Area 643. Buck regulations also apply in this area. These two programs will be discussed later in the brief. The training corridor sits between Blue Mountain and Second Mountain and holds over 11,000 acres for outdoor recreation. The bulk of military training occurs in the corridor, and this area also contains the impact area, which is off limits. The check-in and out procedure will require each user to obtain a username and password. This will be acquired when each user registers. A registered user will then be able to check in, entering their login username and password, selecting the activity of which they are seeking to do. Examples would be archery, deer rifle, scouting, etc. Select two training areas available to them, log out, and take the printout from the kiosk and place on the dashboard of their vehicle. When checking out of the training areas, the user will enter the login information, enter any and all applicable harvest information, enter the amount of time spent hunting in one of the areas, check out, and then log out. The kiosk will print out a receipt of the areas a user signs out for. This receipt is required for each person and must be displayed on the dashboard of the vehicle driven or ridden in. If the printer is out of service for any reason, a daily permit dash card, pictured on the right side of the screen, will be available and must be filled out manually. One of these cards or the printout must be displayed on the dash of the vehicle for each person participating in outdoor recreation. The map before you is an example of a map of the training corridor as it applies to the outdoor recreation participant. Maps are available at the Outdoor Recreation Check-In Facility and the Wildlife Office. It is the responsibility of the participant to obtain, learn, and understand the outdoor recreation map. Areas in red are strictly off-limits and cannot be accessed or entered. Blue areas are only open to archery-type weapons for hunting. Firearms in these areas are strictly prohibited. Purple areas are special regulation areas. Please reference the Regulation Handbook 215-2 for information on area designations and their meaning. Areas open to outdoor recreation and hunting will change on a daily basis. Only what is listed as available in the iSportsman system can be accessed on any given day. Do not enter closed or restricted areas. If access to a closed area is needed, please contact Range Operations and the Wildlife Office to gain permission before entering. Fort Indiantown Gap follows all Pennsylvania Game Commission and Fish and Boat Commission seasons and bag limits. However, the garrison commander may limit or suspend seasons at any time. Quail hunting is not permitted at Fort Indiantown Gap. Amphibian and reptile hunting or collecting is not permitted at Fort Indiantown Gap. All of Fort Indiantown Gap resides in Wildlife Management Unit 4C. The training areas are split between Union and East Hanover townships. Outdoor recreation generally opens the first Tuesday after Labor Day and closes at the end of small game season in February. We are also open from late April to the end of May for the spring turkey season. The end of spring turkey season marks the end of the outdoor recreation year at Fort Indiantown Gap. Fishing is authorized along Indiantown Run from the bridge at St. Joseph Springs south along Route 443 into Marquette Lake and in Shuey Lake without Fort Indiantown Gap access permit. A Fort Indiantown Gap access permit is required to fish in training areas available to outdoor recreation. All persons interested in trapping during fur-taking seasons must be registered for outdoor recreation in the iSportsman system and must see wildlife personnel to register trap lines. Any and all harvests, including trapped animals, must be reported in the iSportsman system. Hunters are responsible for reporting their harvest on the day of harvest and must provide the information and measurements requested. Any failure to do so may result in revocation of your access permit. During the 12 days of regular deer firearms season, the deer harvest station will be open at the check-in facility. Anytime the deer harvest station is open, hunters must bring their harvested deer to be weighed and measured. Hunters alone control the deer population. Your data is required so that wildlife and their habitat can be properly managed. This is why reporting your harvest and checking your deer when the harvest station is open is mandatory. When you harvest a deer, 3 measurements are requested in the iSportsman system for the harvest report. Nose length. Measure from the corner of the eye to the corner of the nostril. Chest girth. Measure just behind the front legs, pulling the measuring tape tight against the chest. Antler base circumference. Measure the base of each antler below the brow tine, if present. These tables represent previous year's harvest data. Although deer harvest reporting seems fairly stable, small game and fur-taking species reporting has been inconsistent at best over the years. Wildlife staff cannot properly manage game species populations without your contributions. Again, please report any and all harvests. It is unlawful for a hunter, under PA Game Code, to refuse or neglect to make a reasonable effort to retrieve any game or wildlife that the hunter may have killed or wounded. It is the hunter's sole responsibility to be capable of participating in outdoor recreation activities and to retrieve any game. Do not expect the wildlife staff or range operations to be available to aid in the recovery of game unless the game has entered a closed or restricted area. If wounded game enters a closed or restricted area, it is the hunter's responsibility to contact wildlife staff and/or range operations immediately. Only range operations can grant access to retrieve wounded game in closed or restricted areas. If wounded game enters private property, contact the PA Game Commission. Please make an effort to recover any game species. If game enters a restricted access area, it may not be retrievable. Hunters are allowed to use designated trails that are otherwise restricted to retrieve game when necessary. Safety violations while participating in outdoor recreation at Fort Indiantown Gap are taken very seriously. Failure to follow rules and regulations, as designated in Regulation Handbook 215-2, will result in points being assigned to the participant. 1 point for minor violations, 2 for major violations, including any safety violations. Serious violations including, but not limited to, hunting in an unsafe manner, entering restricted areas, harassment of Fort Indiantown Gap personnel, and/or use of drugs and alcohol may result in revocation of access permits. The 2015 and 16 season saw over 100 minor and major violations and resulted in 2 revocations. This level of failure to follow rules is unacceptable and needs to improve. Please read over and understand these examples of major violations that may lead to 2 points being assigned. Please reference the Regulation Handbook 215-2 for a complete list. Please read over and understand these examples of serious violations that may lead to revocation. Please reference the Regulation Handbook 215-2 for a complete list. Mentored youth and adults are permitted in accordance with PA Game Code. Registered guardians must fill out a hold harmless agreement for their mentee and submit it to the Wildlife Office. Mentors are responsible for their mentee and must make them aware of any safety concerns. Mentees must remain with their mentors at all times. If you have a disability and would like a Fort Indiantown Gap disabled hunter permit, please see wildlife staff. Hunters must provide a disabled person's permit as issued by the PA Game Commission to receive a Fort Indiantown Gap permit. Non-hunters must provide a disabled person's permit as issued by the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. A Fort Indiantown Gap disabled hunter permit allows participants to travel and/or hunt on any accessible permanent trail or road within a training area that is open that day, and the participant is properly signed into. Hunter capacities in training areas open to firearms hunting may be restricted during the 12 days of firearms season. A lottery system may be used to allocate the number of hunters. A list of the individuals chosen on a particular lottery day will be posted at the Outdoor Recreation Check-in Facility and online at the website shown. Please reference the Outdoor Recreation Regulation Handbook 215-2 for information on how the lottery works with family groups. A waiting list may be used on lottery days for those hunters that did not get chosen. Waiting lists are filled on a first-come, first-served basis and continue until the hunter capacity is reached for that particular day. Hunters may sign out on a waiting list at any time, but must wait for permission to access the corridor before they leave the check-in facility. They must also be present when their name is called to retain their spot on the list. All waiting lists are released at the discretion of wildlife personnel. The Deer Management Assistant Program, or DMAP, is a Pennsylvania Game Commission-run program that allows private landowners with overpopulated deer herds to harvest additional antlerless deer. Fort Indiantown Gap's DMAP unit number is 643. The DMAP area is the entire cantonment section of Fort Indiantown Gap, including the Alpha areas and Area Charlie 1. Hunters may receive up to 2 DMAP coupons. Coupons may be taken to any licensed vendor to be redeemed, or they can be redeemed online. If coupons are taken, they must be redeemed. Unredeemed coupons will result in a loss of hunting privileges. Redeeming a coupon provides the hunter with an additional antlerless deer tag, only good for DMAP Area 643. Hunters must also report online whether or not they use the tag to harvest an antlerless deer. The goal of the DMAP program is to reduce deer population numbers by harvesting more female antlerless deer. Even though antlerless tags are also good for male fawns or buttonbuck, it is highly preferred that female-only deer are harvested with antlerless tags. This year's buttonbuck is the next year's 4- or 6-point buck. Take the time to learn to identify the sexes of fawns. Help us manage the population effectively. Carrying capacity refers to the space and ecological resources required to support a specific number of animals. When deer herds are overpopulated, resources such as food are limited for the individual deer in that habitat. That individual either has to disperse or lives a life in poor nutrition. Does with poor nutrition produce fewer fawns overall, and therefore fewer bucks are produced. Deer herds at or below carrying capacity produce more fawns, and therefore more bucks. It is likely that at least 1 or possibly 2 fawns in this photo are future buck. If this doe had only 1 fawn, there is only a 50-50 chance it would be a buck. Earn a Buck is a Fort Indiantown Gap program that requires a hunter that is hunting in cantonment or the DMAP areas to harvest an antlerless deer before they may have the opportunity to harvest a buck. In order to participate in Earn a Buck, a hunter must have an available Wildlife Management Unit 4C tag or a DMAP tag. This only applies to cantonment, which includes all alpha areas and Area Charlie 1. Earn a Buck is not required for youth or mentored youth hunters. Again, female antlerless deer are preferred to effectively manage the population. Violators will lose hunting privileges at Fort Indiantown Gap. Volunteering at Fort Indiantown Gap holds many benefits. This allows for outdoor recreation participants a chance to learn the habitat and training areas in a safe manner before heading out on their own. Volunteers will receive additional entries in the Firearms Season Lottery for every 10 hours of time contributed. Although there are many volunteer opportunities with the Fort Indiantown Gap Conservation Club, you do not have to be a member to volunteer. Volunteer forms are available at the check-in facility and at the Wildlife Office. New hunter orientations are held every year before archery deer season. If you are new or would like a refresher on the sign-in and/or access and parking rules, please attend an orientation. See wildlife personnel for information on orientation times and dates. Remember that knowing how to safely access Fort Indiantown Gap for outdoor recreation is the most important aspect of this program. Know how to sign in and sign out. Deer must be checked at the harvest station when it is open, and hunters must report any and all harvests in the iSportsman system. Please follow all DMAP and Earn a Buck regulations. Remember that all Pennsylvania Game Commission and Fish and Boat Commission regulations apply at all times. Non-compliance will result in a loss of privileges for all participants. Please note these important contacts. All access and safety and/or emergency concerns must be reported to range operations. Emergency situations can also be reported to the Fort Indiantown Gap Police. For any outdoor recreation program or wildlife issues, please contact one of these wildlife personnel. The wildlife cell number is the best means of immediate communication during outdoor recreation seasons. Please use email for non-urgent issues or questions. The Fort Indiantown Gap Conservation Club meets in Building 13-4 along Clement Avenue the third Thursday of every month. The Wildlife Office is Building 11-19 along Utility Road.